And I think we're live. Here we go. All right. Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar, Maintenance and Operation Best Practices for Operational Excellence. My name is Vince Grosso. I'm a product marketer here at UpKeep, and I'm joined today by Todd Junker and Gary Wood. Before we kick off today's presentation, there's just a few housekeeping items to cover. We'd love for today's session to be interactive, so go ahead and drop your name and location in the chat box. And throughout the webinar, please feel free to use the chat feature to submit any questions you have. We'll do our best to answer questions throughout the session, and time permitting, we'll do a little bit of quick Q&A at the end. And we're eager to dive in the product with you. Today's session is being recorded and will be available on demand following the conclusion of the event. You should be receiving an email post-event with a link to the webinar. If you don't, please reach out to us, info@upkeep.com, or use the chat feature on our website, and we're happy to provide that for you. With that being said, I'm going to hand things over to our speakers, Gary and Todd, to introduce themselves and kick things off.
I'll get started. My name is Todd. I'm one of the solutions engineers here with UpKeep. Been in the role now about 4 months or so, prior to which I did have the opportunity to serve as the team leader for the CSM team here with UpKeep. So gotten to know both sides of the organization fairly well at this point. As Vince said, as we get into this webinar session here and dive into the product itself, especially, please feel free to submit any questions. And Gary and I are going to do our darndest to answer them for you.
Yep. Gary Wood, Senior Implementation Manager here at UpKeep, coming on 2 years in January. So really excited to assist everybody with any questions they may have, and, just kind of give you some insight on how to really own your operations, own your asset operations in UpKeep, and make everything more fluid for your organization.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time, guys. And sorry, I didn't realize our slides weren't showing, but I think we're all up. We're all up now, not just a couple talking heads. But great to have you guys here today. So I'm going to kick things off real quick and then hand it over to Todd and Gary to dive in. Like I mentioned, today we're talking about operational excellence. And the quote on the left here is something that, in preparing for this webinar, Gary so eloquently put, and I thought it was great to capture here and kick things off with. Operational excellence turns average maintenance operations and reliability into world-class asset operations. This is really a core aspect of what we do here at UpKeep, and a goal we have for all of our customers. I wanted to put a quick plug in here for the pillars of asset operations that we have, that our CEO, Ryan, actually wrote into our asset operations book, and that we really preach. And as we go through some of the aspects of operational excellence today, keep these pillars in mind. And they all really do ring true when we start talking about operating your maintenance operations in the most efficient and effective way possible. So without further ado, again, I guess I'm going to kick it over to Todd, and he's going to grab control and start talking about 4 things we really wanted to hone in on here today. It's tough to cover all these things in a 40-minute webinar, but we decided there were 4 key things to touch on, and Todd's going to be able to really highlight each one, and Todd and Gary can talk about each one and hop into the product and show you exactly how to execute on them. So go ahead, Todd and Gary, take it away.
Sounds great. Thank you, Vince. So before I go ahead and take control of the screen, just to reiterate what those topics are going to be, Gary and I are going to walk through the idea of work order optimization, how to clearly identify your work order tickets within the solution, as well as some best practice tips and tricks for managing those once they are within the solution, leveraging the capabilities of the use of automated workflows consisting of if and then statements to really streamline work order efforts. Also leveraging the use of our checklist library, which is going to help remove the aspect of the knowledge of maintenance from tribal information to being available system-wide for any of your end users. And then also highlighting the capabilities and benefits of our location-based permissions functionality. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for everyone here. And we're going to jump right into the webinar. If I could just get a verbal confirmation, everyone can see my screen. We should be seeing optimizing work order workflows.
Looks like we're good to go.
Good to go. Good. All right, wonderful. So what we're really looking to talk about here is really the tips for identifying your work order tickets, and some things that have really become apparent to me in my time working within the asset operation space is really the importance for establishing a clear and consistent naming convention for your, not just your maintenance tickets, but really for all of your data points within the solution altogether. And what that's really going to allow you to do is at a quick glance, be able to clearly identify, in the case of work orders, the problem at hand, the equipment it's meant for, which is ultimately going to allow you to understand who is needing to be assigned to these jobs and who to follow up with when needing to best understand what any delays might be or where the progress or status is in terms of completing that job. It's also going to help when you're tracking information all the way from request to work order in the sense that nothing's going to be getting lost by leaving things on a post-it note. It really just hampers down on the need to submit each and every use case into the solution itself, because it's really going to correlate into a piece of equipment or an asset's work order history. We're also then going to be touching here on some tips and tricks for setting your filters as well as your views within the solution, being much more proactive by doing a little bit of prep work ahead of the time so you can quickly access a handful of records within the solution at just the click of a button, as well as getting ready for the change in the calendar year. We're going to be moving here into the end of the year in just a month now, and right now is a better time than any to go ahead and take the opportunity to maybe do some cleanup so you can start the new year fresh. Gary, before I jump into the product itself, did you by chance have anything you wanted to add in?
Yeah, just a little bit of past experience here, you know, based on my past experiences. Guys, I spent 26 plus years in manufacturing. I started pushing a toolbox back in 1991, 90, somewhere through there, and finished my career as a plant superintendent, fill-in plant manager. So I've been all across the maintenance community within manufacturing facilities. Consistent naming conventions. Yes, we have 5 forklifts in our facility, right? We want to put some type of naming convention to that to separate those items in the application. So when we go pulling reports or work orders or things like that, there's a different structure. You know, we're more granular reporting. How much have we spent on forklift 1, 2, 3, 4 versus forklift 2, 3, 4, 1? Right? So we want to be more granular with naming conventions. Request, just to touch a little bit on that. Like I said, I was in manufacturing. I've seen the Post-it notes, the calls, the walkie-talkies, walking through the facility with a notepad in your hand because somebody's going to stop you. Let's put it in a software system, okay? Nothing's lost. It's not in the notebook that you lay down and forget about. You know, everything is in the system. We have eyes on it. We get wrenches turned into it quicker, okay? So just a few highlights I see on that. So yeah, go ahead, Todd.
All right. Thank you very much. Not to hurt anyone's eyes there with that quick glance. Everyone should now be seeing our work orders page. I'm sharing this from my demo environment. Hopefully I'm not making myself look foolish in front of someone with all of Gary's experience here. But really what we want to reiterate when it comes down to your work order management within that clear and concise naming convention, you can see I've got just a whole wide range of different types of assets and work order tickets here highlighted by the title that they've been given. For example, I'm able to easily glance at this and understand which of these are going to be a recurring or preventive maintenance work order versus some that are reactive. And how I'm able to do that myself is I've got the naming conventions calling out a frequency. So you can see here, for example, I've got an air handler unit coming up on a quarterly inspection. So at a glance, I can quickly understand this is a job that is getting done on a routine basis. It's preventive maintenance, and it's something we certainly want to keep up with. In particular, this might be one of my very critical assets that are going to be highly important to the organization. So with just a nice, clear and concise naming convention, I'm able to establish that versus something that might be just being conducted on a reactive basis, such as I've got a compressor that was damaged here. It's going to tell me that I might need to, postpone the work on some of my recurring work in order to best assess what's going on in in the mindset this could be a highly critical asset to my organization as a whole. I also did go ahead and add a column into my view. You'll see over here on the far right, which is called days since creation. This is available to everyone underneath your customization of your page and can be extremely helpful to help allow you to best understand how long jobs have been open within your platform in order to best assess, are they needing to get completed? Maybe, as you can see, I've got a whole bunch of these that are set as on hold at this point in time. That could tell me maybe the job is done, but it's awaiting supervisor sign off. Maybe it's awaiting spare parts to come in. I know just by a glance, I can go in and get a little bit more information on this to better assess what maybe the holdup on some of these might be, and just overall help to really get these completed, get them out of my range of view in order to just clean up my page and really help the organization along from the maintenance aspect as a whole.
Hey, Todd and Gary, and this may be a good question for Gary and your experience from John. He asked a kind of a use case question and mentioned, you can tell people the naming conventions and tell all users the naming conventions, but how do you facilitate the cleanup of those things and maybe control the who can actually create those naming conventions and apply them?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. But, based on my experience, our users, or what we rely on the most, right, in these facilities, which is our requesters. There are eyes and ears across the facility when our guys are busy doing PM breakdowns or projects, right? So they're not going to know what we call assets in our system. Okay, a lot of requesters just don't know. They know it's a tire machine, but they're not sure, which one, or if it's a BBR1 or a BBR2. Okay, so they're not going to understand and grab that. Location is imperative. Okay, if they can submit to us the location, then from there and give us a good description, then we can understand, more or less what the work order is about. In cleaning the data, strictly leave that at admin level. I really would. Don't allow your technicians to get in there and start cleaning stuff out. I've been in those facilities where you just have technicians that are just looking for an easy day. Okay, believe it or not, I've seen those, and they may start cleaning stuff out that's vital to your system. Just to have a laid back day in the workspace. So that's how I would control that. It's not that I like to micromanage. I just I'm just one of those people that trust myself. So, but awesome question. Hopefully I answered it for you. I went down the rabbit hole a little bit. Not bad.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback on what Gary is saying there, just from my experience, especially working with customers, once you've gone live with the use of the solution, it's very important to establish who is going to be responsible for what. We, of course, want to empower our end users, or the technicians, as we like to coin them, to be able to come in clearly and easily access what jobs they're responsible for conducting, and being able to complete one effectively and move on to the next job, so they can really just overall improve their efficiency and optimization to the organization. And then, of course, keeping those higher level administrative level users to be responsible for helping with the overall scheduling of work, who's going to be assigned to them. And of course, when it comes down to this cleanup, just so that way we're not getting anything accidentally removed from the solution, jobs falling through the cracks from that endpoint. It just helps really create a nice, clean separation in terms of responsibilities. So we do have those capabilities, of course, through the use of, just overall permissioning, and as well as custom permissioning within the solution. So you can establish one or maybe two people that have that ability to come in and clean up work orders for you on a, as needed basis.
Yeah.
And I just want to remind folks, I know there's some questions coming through the chat function. I'm keeping an eye on them. It's actually a lot easier for us to see and triage those if you use the questions button down there on the bottom right. So feel free to submit them as well there. If you have any trouble, let us know. We can help you through the chat bubble as well. One quick, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Vince, to interrupt. Let's touch on Jim Lincoln's question here.
Yeah,
I like that.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up.
Okay, I'm sorry. Should naming conventions be set up during implementations or on the fly? Okay, absolutely during implementation. Okay, when you gather that data, okay, then that's the time we need to get those naming conventions set up prior to import. Okay, that way each asset has its own identity, sort of speaking. So I would definitely do that during implementation. My apologies, Vince.
So, and Gary, maybe a follow-up to that is if we have somebody who's an Upkeep user who maybe doesn't have those conventions set up but is actively using the system, and they may have to make some changes, going into 2023. What's the best way to do that? Is that an admin functionality that go in to do the rewrite, and what's the best way to roll those things out?
Yeah, definitely be an admin. I mean, what I would do is do an export of your assets, a full export. And I would do a filter through your locations, maybe grab a location prefix. Okay, if I have forklift 1, 2, 3, and 4 that's in this facility, okay, one's a bag room 1 forklift, one's a bag room 2 forklift, one's a shipping, one's a receiving. Okay, I would just go through and put B1, B2, ship, receive across those or connected to each forklift. That way they have its own identity. Okay, so definitely through export, but it would absolutely be an admin license that would need to do that. Okay, I would keep it at the highest level possible.
Sure. And Todd, what about at the work order level? Does that all still apply?
Yeah, absolutely. The sooner you can get the practice established, the better, because before long, it's just simply going to become muscle memory at that standpoint. So the idea there is really just to make it as clear and transparent as absolutely possible, especially if you're in a facility or somewhere where you have a lot of similar assets. You can easily at a glance come in and I can see this this particular work order here is for air handler unit 1-1EC. It's part of my Elizabeth City plant. I can differentiate it from one from the other, especially if you're going to be managing multiple locations within one platform. It is just so necessary to be able to identify one location's assets at a glance from the other. You can, of course, use the filtering capabilities to look at specific locations, to be able to toggle down. This is just a way to help save moments in your day-to-day operations, which will, of course, add up over time, and you're just going to be able to more effectively manage your machine here.
Yeah. Yep, I like the naming convention you have across those that PM. Well, all of them actually. I mean, it tells me up front what it is, where it's at, and what the rate is. Okay, so up front, I can see exactly what that's about. Very good naming conventions, Todd.
Absolutely. Before we segue topics, just wanted to make sure we're keeping on time here and best utilizing the opportunity that we have. Wanted to touch really quickly on some of these. It's not spring cleaning for sure, but it's kind of along that same line. If we have some of these tickets, we know the job's been done because we've been completing say quarterly maintenance on them in the interim. You can easily come through, identify these tickets, and then in bulk have that opportunity to where you can mass change the statuses. Or even in the event, maybe you had some turnover or someone fell ill, is on vacation, whatever it might be, you need to make sure the jobs are still getting done effectively and on time. You can also mass update your assignees on these tickets. So that way nothing's falling through the cracks or getting delayed by weeks on end. You can make sure you're just keeping this well-oiled machine running as quickly and efficiently as possible. And you're not going to have to go through multiple tickets individually and make those changes accordingly. You can just go through and do it on the fly as you like. All right. Perfect. I am going to go ahead. I'm going to transition us back here to our slideshow here. The next topic we wanted to address was going to be both around the checklist library as well as our automated workflows. Starting on the left-hand side, the importance of establishing a nice checklist library within your solution here is really to establish repeatable processes and overall drive adoption and efficiency from your workforce. It's also going to be to set company-wide standards for increasing resilience. It's also, in addition to your preventive maintenance inspections that you're going to be conducting, it's also bringing in the importance of reactive checklists that you're going to be doing. We've got an example down here, and I know Gary can speak to this a little bit more efficiently than I can, so I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk here, Gary. But for example, this can be of great importance when you're really trying to follow compliance, such as your OSHA or other safety inspections that you need to be conducting when, say, a piece of machinery goes down or something that could become a safety hazard for for your end users and employees. It's also going to help really eliminate that concept of tribal knowledge. You could have the greatest workforce and maintenance crew known to man, but as folks, get up there and they're looking to transition, retire, whatever it might be, you don't want them necessarily to take all that knowledge with them, get a new workforce in, and have no way of knowing how to effectively conduct maintenance on your equipment. By logging this data in detail and clearly establishing your procedures that need to be followed, you're going to help really reduce that tribal knowledge and just empower that workforce. Gary, feel free to jump in and add anything there if you like.
Yeah, reactive checklist, guys. I use a lot of this at Goodyear, OSHA checklist. Some of those items may be install lockout, tag out, de-energize the equipment, notify all affected employees of work to be done. So you can definitely have checklists, reactive and PM. PM based, we know what we're doing, right? We're taking the machine guards off. We're blowing out the equipment. We're checking chains, sprockets, guards, gearboxes, things like that. So yeah, you can definitely have checklists around both parameters. Touching on tribal knowledge, I've had some of those older gentlemen. I'm one of those older gentlemen now. Unfortunately, I've had some of those older gentlemen that retained a lot of the knowledge around working on equipment, what we should be doing during PMs and things like that. Creating checklists based on their experience is going to be that transfer or that capture of the knowledge, right? So once we get that from that individual, then go ahead and apply that to your checklist. Keep that stuff in the application. Have that knowledge available and ready for everybody that works on that specific work order. So some great things to discuss across checklist and libraries housed within. So yeah.
Hey Gary, another interesting question from Jim Lincoln about the tribal knowledge capture.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, in your experience, how have you seen the most successful companies gather that tribal knowledge and capture in a system like UpKeep? What's that process like, and what are maybe some best practices you've seen to accomplish that?
Yeah, so we'll be getting ahead of the slides a little bit, but
okay.
Team buy-in.
Gotcha. We'll get there.
If you have that in your team, some humility, okay, not be the czarful leader, just being a guy that, like at Goodyear, my guys, they respected me because, I led from, I just led from in front. Okay. I was one of the guys, at another facility, tuck his tie in his shirt, sit on a bucket, turn some wrenches. So, that's how I got it. I wasn't like a czarist. I was more like one of the guys to my maintenance team. So, and in doing that, I gained a lot of knowledge across what we needed to do in our facilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I've seen in my time is many of our customers are certainly adopting the concept of leveraging the checklist and the task procedures that we have available for you. It is extremely beneficial to your organizations to use these in conjunction with our next topic, which is the automated workflows, to easily identify certain jobs, especially things pertaining to emergencies or safety related requests that are getting submitted in. It can help to really streamline maintenance processes and overall ensure that you have a nice, safe working environment for all of your users, and that you're not going to be at risk of, say, failing and losing any kind of compliance certifications that you've worked hard to earn over time and that allow you to continue operating effectively in your space. So real quick, what we wanted to do before we jump back to the platform to kind of just show these two working in conjunction with one another, touching on the automated workflows, where these can really come into efficiency is based on various aspects that are added into the job, such as priority of work, categorization of work. It's going to ensure that you're getting the right technician or right team of technicians assigned to the job quickly and efficiently. It's going to help you remove some of that kind of aspect of human error to where you're overthinking the scenario or situation a little too much. In the case of an example we're going to show here, it also allows you to perform quality assurance and quality control reviews at the click of a button. And then also it's going to help you to streamline things like real-time monitoring, whether this is through our edge sensor capabilities or also through meters that you're leveraging in your day-to-day operations to track hours of operation, temperature monitoring, vibration analysis, whatever it might be. You can also streamline and feed that data directly through your checklist from your work order standpoint. And these can be associated to your tickets via automated workflow as needed. So without further ado, I'm going to jump us right back into this. Just to give you an example of one of the concepts we built out here, right here on this particular work order, we've got an example of one of those checklists that are currently on display on this work order, with one of our final questions on this saying, is this ready for a quality assurance, quality control review? And to show you how, in conjunction with these automated workflows, I simply toggle this value to a yes. You'll see it updated my status, or the task updated. And then you probably saw this little update here in the background where I can jump to it and show that this automatically fired off a new work order. It contains the values from that question saying this is ready for that quality assurance, quality control review. We can also have a series of automated workflows really streamline the process by assigning this to a particular individual or team, as you see we've got here. And it also can establish, in the case that we have here, a unique inspection list that's going to be required, say, from a supervisor to fill out, all the way down to where we're asking them to manually input their name and attach a photo of their ID badge for an additional level of verification at that standpoint. So as you can see, just with a little bit of work up front, some of that prep work Gary helped us allude to earlier on, you can really turn your organization into just an efficient operating machine from top to bottom. Set this up, establish those workflows, and it's really just going to help you save time and effort, which are going to just lead into a more fruitful return on investment in the long run. Gary or Vince, do we have any questions coming in? I apologize. I have that minimized right now while in present mode.
Yeah, there's definitely a few in here that I think are worth touching on. Rick Adler asked one about some change management. So, and mass changing of assignees to work orders. So if maybe there's turnover and they want to reassign someone's reoccurring inspections to another user, how does that work?
Yeah, very good question. I can actually show you that here in real time. That's going to fall back down to the work orders page. Now, if this is recurring work, this method I'm going to show you is for how to change the existing tickets. You can also mass change these from your preventive maintenance module on your triggers. The easiest method there is going to be kind of like an import-export functionality. Just reassign those and then plug them back into the solution to do a mass update. If you're strictly looking to just reassign some open tickets, you can certainly do so by just selecting these via the checkbox. You can mass select all those on your page. In this case, I'm just going to go ahead and select a few of these that are assigned to myself, come over to my change assignee, and I can toggle through those that I have available to myself. I'm going to reassign them to Templeton. He's my new technician, very hands-on. And just with a couple of clicks, you can see there, I was able to reassign 3 work orders in less than 5 seconds in this case. Now, it might take a little bit more effort, especially if you have any turnover. What I would recommend there, first filter down to that end user, discover exactly which tickets they still have assigned to them, and then you can easily make that decision from there. And of course, just kind of really get that process reassigned. This is automatically, of course, going to update that person's work order queue within their mobile device, or especially on their web platform as well. So without missing a beat, they're going to have those tickets fall into their queue and be able to continue on where the previous person had left off.
Awesome stuff.
Wonderful. Before we get into our last topic, which is going to be that aspect of the locations-based permission, did we have any additional questions we wanted to touch on quickly?
There's definitely a few in here, Todd. I don't want to derail things too much, but can you hide recurring PM work orders until a specific time, for instance, a week before the due date?
Well, you're not gonna see that PM anyway in your work orders view. Okay, it's only going to generate that based on the cadence that you put in for that PM library. Okay, our preventative maintenance portal up here, as you can see on Todd's screen, second from the top, that is just a library. It holds your PMs. It's not going to generate work orders, like I say, until you've hit the timeline or the creation cadence for that. So you really don't need to hide, any of that per se. Checklists work pretty much the same way. I mean, the checklist portal, that's just a library. We apply it across several different PMs within that application. So, no need to hide them. Just, be diligent in setting up your PM timelines in the creating cadence for them.
Yeah, very true, and that's certainly something that is a best practice we like to coach to our end users, our customer base that are going to leverage the platform. You do, of course, have capabilities to establish additional filtering criteria. So from a supervisor or manager standpoint, if you did not want to clutter down your list view of work orders, you certainly can toggle through your additional filters to view, say, only reactive work orders. Those are going to be the ones that you're submitting on an ad hoc basis or coming through as a request, or also your repeating work orders. What I would recommend doing here, if you want to kind of just clearly jump back and forth between the two without having to reapply these filters consistently, come in, select that value, show your results. Any other filtering criteria you might have in place can certainly fall into view. And then one of my favorite things to do is set those quick filters. So I could simply come in here, save this filter, call this my PM work by employee, etc. I save that filter, and then when I'm ready, if I'm first logging into the solution on a given day, I can come in and I can quickly reestablish that save filter. So I can toggle back into my view there of the preventive work versus reactive. You can also establish those parameters by days created, days due, etc. So you can leverage these to really up level your overall maintenance experience.
Yeah.
All right. Wonderful. Well, please do keep those questions coming. They're very helpful. We love to be interactive. For right now, just keeping an eye on the clock. I know we got a little bit less than 15 minutes left. I'm going to jump us into our final topic, which is a newer functionality we released a couple of months ago that we call our location-based permissions. Really what this allows you to do within the solution of UpKeep is construct data permissions across multiple locations, so managed from one account. You're overall going to preserve your data integrity, meaning no one's going to accidentally consume parts from a location where they're not working. They're not going to create work orders for an asset that's at a completely separate location. But also most importantly as well, it's going to make this an ease of use aspect for your end users. They're not going to have near as much data to sift through as they're going through to, say, submit a work order or view what spare parts they have available. It's just going to give you so much more overall control. It's also going to allow you to set up your data hierarchies by location within these within your solution, and just it makes it such an easier setup easier setup that you can toggle around on an as needed basis. So you'll notice here we've captured an image from it. If you haven't seen this before, we can certainly jump into the product and address that for you. Also, a great opportunity to connect with your technical support specialist here at UpKeep, or especially your customer success manager to coach these best practices. Really comes down to the individual end user, which you'll see lightly over here on my right-hand side. Simply select that location permission at the bottom of that screen there, and then establish which locations they need visibility into. It could be all, which is the default setting, one location, multiple locations. It's going to be a hierarchy for your personnel. You may have regional managers that oversee multiple facilities, but don't need to see everything as a whole. You might have a technician that's a roaming technician that goes between a couple different facilities, but overall doesn't need to see the entire organization. And then, of course, you're going to have your higher ups, maybe your executives, et cetera, who really need that bird's eye view of what's going on across the entirety of the organization. They're likely going to need full access, so that way they can help maintain the solution from that standpoint. So there's going to be a lot of different ways that you can apply this, and it's a couple of clicks, very easy to set up for you, so you can really just put this into practice very, very efficiently for your teams.
And Todd, I think we have a few minutes. So do you want to hop in and actually show where that's located in UpKeep?
Absolutely. So we'll come back just from the starting point here. So I have my list of users. They could be for multiple locations. My account here is set up for 4 locations. It is a demo environment, so a lot fewer end users than you're probably used to seeing in your own solutions. It's really just going to come down to saying, I have a technician here and I need them to clearly only see data for, say, a particular plant. I'm going to go ahead and select this one user, scroll to that bottom of my page here where we have that location-based user setting, select the location access, and then I can just clearly select which plants or locations rather that they are needing to see, hit save, and I'm done. And that's just going to really help both yourselves out from a data integrity standpoint. It's going to help them out in the long run as well, because they're just going to be better equipped to perform their day-to-day operations.
Yeah. Very huge also, touching a little bit more on location-based permissions, very huge for multi-sites, okay? For those organizations out there that has, multiple campuses in different areas, we can streamline that up under one site and change those location-based permissions, just give people access where they physically work. So a lot of good usage around multi-site there.
Absolutely. Well, I know that that covers the few topics we had here today. We definitely went through them very quickly, whereas we probably could have spent an hour on just an individual topic itself. Strongly encourage everyone to make sure you best leverage the resources that you do have available to yourself. Gary and I, of course, are here within the organization. You have a wonderful customer success management team that you can lean on. Our technical support team is extremely knowledgeable in the solution and can help coach best practices as well. So make sure you leverage those resources that are there and available to you. Without further ado, I can go ahead and give control back here to Vince, but please do if you have any questions. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, before you do, there was a couple questions in the vein of data that I thought maybe we could ask here and show if there is something applicable to show. But there were a couple questions about data transfer. So let's say I'm a new UpKeep customer and I want to implement some of these operational best practices we just talked about when I'm uploading data into Upload to kick things off. What does that look like? And I guess as a follow-up, what if I'm a current UpKeep customer and want to do some of the mass updating to these things? Is it in the same place? What's that flow look like?
Absolutely. A very good question there. I'm going to come at it from the mindset of an existing customer. Just because you established your system one way does not mean it's too late to change the data around, because I can simply come in, change the name of one of my pieces of equipment here, and what the solution is automatically going to do for me is reach into every aspect that it's tied to. So in the case of one of my forklifts, any work order that's been created for that forklift over time, the correlation between that forklift and, say, some of my spare parts or preventive maintenance triggers that I have, it's going to automatically ignite a script within the solution. So it's going to reach to all those aspects and it's going to update those as you go. So you're not going to lose that maintenance history. You're not going to have a confusing name change that's going to be appearing and could throw off your analytics. So you can do this on that one-by-one standpoint. But as the question came in, how do we do this in bulk? How do we just be more efficient with our time? As Gary mentioned earlier in the call, it's going to come down to simply exporting your data into a CSV Excel file format and making certain changes. You can definitely toggle these, sort them into view by, say, the location where they adhere to. We fully understand and appreciate the fact that most likely managing this type of solution is not your only responsibility within an organization, and your time is very valuable. My recommendation is going to be to coach. Don't feel that you need to update everything all at once. You're going to be progressing to making overall better system improvements and changes. Even if you do these a small handful of records at a time, would recommend just take those snippets, update your naming conventions, other data points essentially as you go. And say, even if you're only able to do 5 of them and then something falls across your desk, go ahead and import those 5 records back into the solution. It's going to automatically update everything for you and be that much more efficient. Likewise, coming to us from a different solution, or maybe you're coming from no solution, using this import functionality is going to overall save you so much time and effort, and probably a couple of headaches along the way. And then once again, you have a tremendous amount of resources here at the company that are going to be available to you to help, lend their eyes and ears and also their voice for establishing these best practices.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Well, Todd, I'll go ahead and share my screen. And let me know when you guys are seeing that. Thumbs up. Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, another Gary Wood bullet point here. I wanted to wrap things up. We started with one. I figured we'd end with one. Team buy-in is essential to success with operational excellence. This is something, in a few different calls and meetings, I always hear Gary harp on, and I think it's very, very important and key to what we're doing here. Actually getting your teams on board, using the product, buying into the processes, and really working towards an aspect of operational excellence. Having them on board with those things is really key to having success here. And I threw up this slide because I thought it was a good example that we use often in our presentations from one of our customers, Trinity Products. They had a team that was reluctant to take on this type of change. But in using a tool like UpKeep that's easy to use, that's mobile first and mobile friendly, it showed them that this was something that was going to help them do their job better, not hinder or replace what they're doing. And I thought I'd give Gary some space here too to talk a little bit about this.
Yeah. So with team buy-in, we're all the time, shopping for the next, the latest and greatest CMMS systems out there in the space, what they can do, what they can't do. Involve your team with that from the get-go. Okay, that's imperative. That's creating that relationship, that team buy-in relationship there. So allowing them to have some input to that, and on through implementation and all, absolutely let them be a part of something. Just don't make them feel like they're a workhorse. They're just out there kicking work orders and PMs down as hard as they can to assist the organization in a better bottom line. But keep them involved with all the functionality, with choosing the correct system. I had a lead maintenance tech some years ago, and I'm telling you, he was super smart. He didn't want to give up any knowledge because he was scared once he shared that we would let him go. And that's the furthest thing from the case. I mean, we're just trying to capture that knowledge, put it in the system. And, that way, when other people come forward and say, yeah, this is great here. It gives us guidance on doing our jobs, and what so-and-so done was great. So creating that buy-in, letting it filter through your team and letting your team be more efficient and, all that and outcome. That's the main goal. So, got it. I can't stress it enough about team buy-in. You've got to do it. It's only going to help you in the end.
Love it. And Todd, I see in there trying to answer questions as quickly as they're coming in. I want to thank.
One more thing, Vince. I don't mean to interrupt. Jim Lincoln, let me tell you, I've worked in 16 different applications in my career. You won't find me any better than UpKeep. Go ahead, Vince.
That's a perfect cherry on top. What I was going to say is we do get a lot of questions and a lot of comments as we're going through this stuff. We very, very much appreciate it. We try to get to as many as we can, and we'll do our best to follow up with everyone that's asked a question we didn't make it to. I also want to point out that those questions and comments drive a lot of what we create as far as content goes with our marketing and content teams at UpKeep. So we love the input. We do take it very much to heart. And keep an eye on our blog and all the content we're publishing. A lot of times there are answers directly to the types of questions you're asking here on these webinars. So I just want to say thank you to everyone again. Thank you very much, Gary and Todd, for the great session today. We look forward to doing a lot more of it. And feel free to visit us at upkeep.com. There's a chat function there, or reach out to any of us on LinkedIn or via email. We're happy to connect with you. And have a great Thursday and kick off to the last month of the year.
Everybody have a great one. Have a very Merry Christmas.
Thank you all. Take care.